Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for my latest 2026 NHL Draft Rankings, featuring a new prospect at the number 1 position. With a lot more viewings on the top prospects in this class, I wanted to go through my revised top 20 to see what has changed and who I see as the best prospects in the 2026 draft as of now. A lot has changed, so make sure you guys watch till the end for my rankings and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more draft content just like this all throughout the year. But let's get the rankings started here at number 20 and start out with Adam Valentini. Somebody that I've been very up and down on over the last year. In terms of the pure talent is absolutely exceptional, and this year for Michigan has been putting up some great point totals, 13 points and 4 goals through 14 games. On top of the skill and energy that Valentini provides, his strength has also come a long ways over the last year. The NCAA boost has certainly helped thus far, but he looks a lot stronger on his skates, a lot stronger against physical competition. Of how much of an underrated battler he is, once he gets even stronger, I think he'll be even more effective. He's grown so much already throughout the course of this season that I could see maybe a top 15 pick when it's all said and done for me. Moving on to a defensive prospect that is so much fun to watch, we go into Albert Smits out of the Liga. The Latvian D at 6'3", 205 pounds has had a rock star season up to this point, getting 11 points and 6 goals through 21 games. It's incredible production for a defenseman that's not even 18 yet, and in Smith's case, he is a tale of two sides. Off the puck, I don't think he's the greatest mentally. I think there are times where he can kind of get out-battled, and especially at his size, I don't think that's what you quite want. But he kind of reminds me of like a Denton Matejchuk, where the high-end tempo and skill is just really tantalizing, especially for a defenseman as big as he is. He's a bit of a swing for the fences type of prospect because I don't think his decision-making in all zones is quite to the level I want it to be, but again, in terms of those high-end moments, in terms of what Smits is capable of, he's one of the most exciting players in this class. Now, moving on to number 18, we go on to Jack Hextall out of the USHL. Planning his plays well and executing on them is exactly what Hextall does best. He's such a great driver of play just because of how smart he is, rarely makes mistakes, is already very mature at his age, and defensively is extremely responsible. He hasn't put up fantastic point totals this year, 15 points in 19 USHL games, but I think has all the makings of just a really solid third-line center in the NHL. Onto a much rawer defenseman, we go on to the defensive side again here in Malte Gustafsson out of Sweden. Big size at 6'4", 198 pounds, and even though his season hasn't been unbelievable at this point, the offense in the U20 is not bad, 9 points in 13 games for a defenseman, plus has gotten a cup of coffee in the SHL already, which is good to see. He has all the tools to me to be just a very effective shutdown middle pair D, loves to use the physical game, great skater for his size, incredibly mobile. It's just about tuning some of that positioning, tuning some of that quick decisions, and I think Gustafsson could just be a really effective minute eater in the NHL. Onto a much different player here though, we go on to JP Hurlburt out of the WHL, who has been torching up the league. The Allen, Texas native so far through 22 WHL games has 14 goals and 38 points, on pace for 117 points this year. Hurlburt to me is one of the best distributors of this class, especially in transition. He mixes both his smarts and creativity to just leverage transition up the ice. And of course, with that passing ability and the power play, the goal scoring potential there, the offense is certainly there. Plus, I think the hard working ability goes a bit underrated in Hurlburt's case. He likes to forecheck here and there, likes to get a bit physical, even though he's not the greatest at it. The big thing that hurts his projection to me is his skating level, specifically with his acceleration. He's just not able to blow past opponents or be much of a surprise in transition with his speed, so he has to kind of default to his playmaking. That type of predictability will, I think, hurt him in the end just a little bit, even if I still think the offensive potential is sky high. Onto a prospect that's definitely disappointing me this season, but I still think has an NHL future, in Ryan Rubrick out of the OHL. Someone with a ton of hype coming into this year as a premier producer last season, getting 87 points in 64 games. This year, though, that production has gone back down a little bit. 21 points in 20 games isn't the worst in the world, but I think for Rubrick's style and being one of the oldest players in this class, it's a tad underwhelming. I like Rubrick with the puck on his stick, and I think he is a good creator, especially on the rush, but everything outside of that is a bit of a question mark to me. He really doesn't use his physicality that much, especially in board battles. He doesn't really engage in many battles whatsoever either. He's kind of just floating a lot of the time out there, and that's a bit of a worry to me because of how much everything in the NHL is a battle. Rubrick just doesn't really want to go into the fight. I think he'll be a good finisher, good power play guy in the NHL, but definitely not a center that drives his own line. He's been playing wing mostly this year too, which also does lower his stock for me. Now going on to a player that is actually a true center, we go on to Oliver Savanto, who's been a really big surprise to me this year. For a more defensive, younger player, he's putting up some pretty good production too. 5 points in 22 Liga games ain't half bad. To me with Savanto, it's the 2 A's, adaptability and awareness. He is just always processing what's going on the ice and always making that next move that ends up getting a a turnover or ends up progressing the play up the ice. He's just incredibly smart and always knows where to be. Similar to like a Mikael Backlund type of projection, just somebody that I think is going to be a great shutdown middle of the lineup center. On to another top European defenseman in this class, we go on to William Hackinson, who I've really enjoyed this season, especially in the SHL. Even though he's had a bit of iffy moments, I think the tools there are very interesting. Another big one at 6'4", 207 pounds. And even though I don't think he'll be as mean as Gustafsson, I do like what Hackinson provides. Plus, he's been playing mostly in the SHL this season. 20 games as well for a draft year D is nothing to scoff at. The edge work is great when it comes to Hawkinson, as well as the physical base he has, but one thing I've really enjoyed with his game through the course of this year is how much more he's leading with his puck possession, how much more confident he looks with the puck on his stick, and that is a big thing. Even though I think he'll be more of a defensive D in the NHL, I think he has some tools here that lead to a bit more of an offensive projection, which does have him a bit higher than a Gustafsson, for example, where I see him as just more of a shutdown D. On to another Swede in this class, we go on to Elton Hermansson out of the Allsvenskan, who's putting up some pretty good production as a Swedish winger. Even though Ivar Stenberg is stealing the show, Hermansson's also looking pretty good too. In the Allsvenskan, 7 points and 4 goals through 10 games. I mean, at around a half a point per game as a draft eligible, that's pretty good production. Hermansson's able to clear that though pretty well so far. It's not surprising. Hermansson offensively just has so many great tools. His vision, his creativity, especially on odd man rushes, is just electric. He is just so much fun when he gets that extra little bit of space. I do want to see a bit more consistency out of him when it comes to his effort level. That's the big thing kind of holding him back for me. But my goodness, he's just going to be a great finisher at the NHL level just for how opportunistic his game is. Now on to another great European defenseman. We go on to a favorite of mine and Juho Pipparainen out of the Liga. I think Finland's having a pretty good year, at least the Liga is in terms of draft eligibles. Pipparainen though is to me the best out there. As a 6'1", 201 right shot D, I think he has transitioned pretty flawlessly onto the Liga this year. The point production isn't unbelievable, 2 assists in 18 games, but what I like about Pipparainen is just the blend of tools and speed and physicality and also just a willingness to make some exciting plays out there. Even though I think his best moments are defensively, I think he's something that is always willing to engage in the rush, always willing to be a big part of transition and get the puck out pretty effectively. I think he's a player that has the potential to be just a fantastic all-around two-way defenseman. Maybe not a number 1 guy, but I think a great complementary number 2 piece. Sometimes his position can be a bit questionable at times, but I think that's more so him just wanting to engage a bit more than he maybe should at points. Once those things are refined, I think he'll be just fine. And also, he's one of the youngest players in the Liga as well this year, playing big minutes, so I'm willing to excuse that for now, for how talented he is. On to another defenseman that I like in this class, we go on to Carson Carrolls out of the WHL. Another pretty big D at 6'2", 194 pounds. In Carroll's case, the offense hasn't been too bad this year, 21 points in 21 games, but I think the biggest thing to me is just how responsible he is. His defensive habits are superb, especially against the rush, and he also has some pop in his game when the offensive zone is established. So I think even though he'll be more of a defensive D, I think he has the opportunistic style to be more of like a 30-point, 40-point type of D on top of the defensive game that is already pretty special. On to another Swede in this class, we go on to Viggo Bjork, who, yes, isn't as high as he was maybe a few months ago, but still has so much talent that I'm willing to bet on within the top 10. He's a game breaker with the puck on his stick, man, simply put, and in the SHL this year, even though he hasn't gotten the biggest opportunity in the world, still has gotten 6 points in 17 games, and whenever the competition is just a bit lower, just is automatically dominant. The big thing I wanted to see out of Bjork was a bit more of a physical layer, and I think we have seen that a bit with his energy, but the muscle isn't quite there yet, and really needs to come a ways, I think, for him to be an effective NHLer. On to another smaller player here, this time on the defensive end, we go on to Xavier Villeneuve, and in terms of the magician, the artistry with the puck on his stick, I mean, it's hard to get much better than this kid. So far in the queue, 25 points and 20 assists through 21 games, gives you a pretty good idea, and he's been on a cold streak recently. It looked a lot better a couple weeks ago. Yes, there's going to be issues with his size and the physical layer there, but when Villeneuve has the puck on his stick, when he's on the power play, when you give him any inch whatsoever, he will make you pay. He's on that Lane Hudson level of creativity and edge work and just explosiveness with his playmaking. It's just so much fun to watch, and like Lane, I really hope that Xavier works out. Onto another smaller player here. I don't mean to put him in bunches, but I guess it's happening here. In Mathis Preston out of the Spokane Chiefs. Now, Preston is one that I do see falling quite a bit on draft boards, mostly because as a smaller forward, the production isn't quite there. 17 points in 19 games. But also, look at the team around him. He only has 3 other players on the team over 10 points through 20 games. So, it's not a great group. But I still think what Preston is able to create, how much he's able to transition well, how much speed he has in his game, and how much of a knack for the net he has, there's a lot to like in this player, and a lot of potential here. And once he gets a bit more support around him, I think you'll start to see the results finally come. Now, onto a defenseman that I really like in this class, we go on to Chase Reed, who, if you want a blend of smarts and passing ability, I don't think you can get much better. You can see in the OHL this year, 27 points in 28 games and 9 goals as well. In Reed's case, what I'm most impressed with is just how many games he's able to play. He can be just a sharp defensive player, layering a good amount of physicality on top of just a great positioning level that makes it so easy for the rest of his teammates, but he can also engage on the rush, be a great passer with his visionary creativity, and in the power play on the offensive zone can do some pretty great things there too. I don't think there's many holes in his game, and even though I don't think the potential is sky high, he just does everything so efficiently. Getting inside our top 5 though, we go on to Ivan Belchets, who I'm a pretty big fan of. I wasn't sure of him heading into the season, but I think he's really impressed me up to this point. At 6'5", 227 pounds, it's pretty magical seeing what he's capable of, especially in odd-man rushes. This guy can be just a straight-up wizard. And you see, in 21 games, 16 goals and 27 points. Now, I will say, even though Belchet's skating level, I think, has improved over the course of the last couple of years, I still think it is a bit of a limiter, but he's also 6'5", so I kind of understand it. But he's engaged, he has great skill, and that skating is coming a ways, plus he's playing in positions like the penalty kill, and I can't even disagree with it because he does have a pretty strong defensive game. I think in Belchet's case, the sky's the limit, but in terms of the floor, it's pretty good too. Now, onto a forward that's had a sad start to the season in Tynan Lawrence out of the USHL. I'm still a massive fan of him, but it is sad that he's only played 2 games up to this point. He was undeniable for the Lumberjacks last year and the MVP of their playoff run as well, looking unbelievably good. To me, when it comes to Lawrence, it's about the IQ, it's about the speed of his game, how good of a transition player he is, and just how effective he is no matter the situation that comes in front of him. That type of adaptability for somebody that young, I think, is extremely special. I just want to see him play more games, man, because I think he could be a contender for the top 3. I just can't really make the argument for that right now. Moving on to set number 3, we go on to Ivar Stenberg out of the SHL, who I'm a super big fan of, and I would say this top 3 is really close for me right now. Stenberg has had a great production run in the SHL this year. 15 points in 19 games as a draft eligible is among the best we have ever seen. And when you watch him, you can absolutely see why. The puck protection, the maturity against physical opposition, it is all there. He might not be the biggest forward in the world, but he doesn't really care. He just bulldozes to the net. He makes things happen. No matter the situation, he applies that skill, isn't afraid to make something happen. And that type of confidence, that type of swagger, on top of a pretty good physical base, is why I think Stenberg is so easily projectable. But now we move on to the top 2, and as I teased before, a change at my number 1 position, because as of right now, if I were to take one player at the 2nd overall position, it would be Gavin McKenna at number 2. I want to make it clear that this was not an easy decision to come to. I was thinking for hours, genuinely, about this number 1 pick, because in McKenna's case, we all know the talent. We all know the playmaking. We all know the vision that is there with the puck on his stick. On the power play, it's undeniable. When he gets that space, it's extraordinary. But my problems in the NCAA were big problems in the WHL as well. When the puck isn't on his stick, when he has to get engaged in battles, when he has to provide any defensive or physical layer, it's just not there. There is serious holes in McKenna's game that you kind of need a more responsible, more hardworking center to be able to overcome. And that's just not the type of prospect I want to take at number 1. If you have a player that you have to overcome, have to shelter, have to do anything whatsoever to, it's just somebody I'm very comfortable taking at number 1. There is obvious high-end talent here, but I just think there are too many big-time issues that haven't been improved over the course of this season that leave me worried. Still, though, I think McKenna's going to pop a point per game season pretty consistently because of how high end that offense and vision is. I just think the defensive game is going to be a problem no matter what. That leads me on to my number one at this point, and who knows, it could change in the future, but as of now, I have Keaton Verhoff at my number one position. Now, I will say, I don't think Verhoff has been overwhelmingly fantastic in the NCAA either. There are holes there. I just think in Verhoff's case, he's a much simpler projection while still bringing some top-tier talent. At 6'4", 212 pounds, as a right shot defenseman, I see Verhoff being that simple number one, number two defenseman for you, an easy top pair defenseman that will log so many minutes and do pretty good with that. He's already doing that with North Dakota this season, and even though the point production hasn't been unbelievable, 8 points through 12 games in a really competitive conference is still pretty good for somebody that won't turn 18 until June. The big thing that I've loved to see out of Verhoff this season is the physical element, how much more confident he looks in the NCAA game after game, and just how much that defensive game has come a long ways. The goal scoring is obviously fantastic. Him on the power play, he can be a force, but that clean game that he provides, how competitive he is, how consistent he is on the ice already, those type of things just give me so much optimism for the future. Even though he has a ways to go until he's a slam dunk number one guy for me, if there's anybody in this class that I would take at first overall right now, it would be Verhoff. But those are my new 2026 NHL Draft Rankings, and yes, I know that the top spot might be controversial, but I'm not going to deny what I've seen, not going to deny what I think, and I'm just going to be as raw as I possibly can for you guys. Don't take that out of context. But that's it for me, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Comment down below your thoughts on my rankings, what you guys agree and disagree with, and who I maybe missed off the list. Let me know your thoughts down below. Of course, share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. If you guys want some more videos, you can become a channel member today by hitting the join button next to the subscribe button or hitting the link in the description down below. You get exclusive videos every single week, plus exclusive member polls you can be a part of, and exclusive emoji to use in the comments down below. But that's it for me, folks. Have a fantastic hockey day, and goodbye.